The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark. Happy Thanksgiving, Wolfpack! We've made it to the end. So let's conclude things with a look at the only reboot fans actually liked. The 80s Twilight Zone. Joining me, your sexy feline host Catastrophe, is our distinguished benefactor and head of an elite alien cat council, Sir Catalyst. Hello. Care to say more? My name is Catalyst, intellectual leader of this dynamic council and friend of your Catastrophe. Your feline friend has collaborated with every other cat on this ship, but now it's my turn. I've never cared much for reviewing, but tonight's Twilight Zone episode has piqued my curiosity, so I just had to partake in Cat's antics. This Twilight Zone tale is a fan favorite of the lesser-known Gen 2 reboot, where grand horror sage Wes Craven gets to fulfill his long-lost dream of devising a supernatural romance arc. Yep. This is another tale from the master of scares himself, Old Man Craven. Despite Craven's well-known recognition among the horror community, Wes actually never wanted to be a scary movie creator. He truly sought to write romance stories instead. I'm not even kidding. Wes wanted to be cinema's Cupid rather than the king of nightmares. And it looks like his tenure on the Twilight Zone allowed him to achieve that dream.
All I ever wanted to do was make a real, classic love story. And the studio said they'd let me. I just had to do a scary movie for them first. And now we're shut down and I am fucked.
Though, hold your applause. Remember, this was the same guy who made Deadly Friend, a supernatural romance which failed in every way imaginable, thanks to executive meddling. Wes Craven never unlocked his love powers, since he often struggled to understand love. Plus, the Twilight Zone is not exactly the place where folks want to fawn over a love romance, as the saga was never admired for that. Twilight Zone love stories, while not awful, are very unlucky, since they tend to be schmaltzy, shallow, cringy bile. Indubitably. I sadly couldn't find too much intel on this story, but I'm aware this plot is a major classic for the fanbase, since it's often cited as one of the most moving tales from G2. Even our pal the Lightbringer listed this as one of the best episodes from the show, so it's clearly not a small title. With Freddy Krueger's maker behind the wheel, I do have some interest in where we go. Wes Craven grants us a more sci-fi style narrative about a man suffering from life problems encountering an enchanting lady who will change his worldview. Nothing quite scary occurs, but it's shocking to hear that a non-scary tale from the parallel dimension earns such success with viewers regardless. Can a supernatural love story from the Twilight Zone truly be that grand? Is this episode really one of the shiniest golden jewels of this reboot? Did Wes Craven at last gain his deep romance for the ages? This episode is said to be the longest story of the 80s series, so we better get to our lab analysis. Grab your VR goggles, cause Catalyst and I are about to test what this episode is made of. This is our wacky review on Wes Craven's Twilight Zone masterpiece, Her Pilgrim Soul. So, our episode opens up in space! Before we pull back, revealing that it's all a VR program, being beta tested by our two main characters, a pair of brilliant scientists named Kevin and, other guy. Kevin is played by Christopher Tabbery, who you might recognize from Avatar, as additional voices. My favorite. Though, oddly enough, the other scientist, Kevin's coworker, is played by the much more famous Gary Cole. Yes, popular voice actor Gary Cole.
Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
Of course, if you follow this channel, then our hardcore Wolfpack Cubs should also recall him as the Spectre, Spirit of Vengeance from the first DC showcase. Oh boy, does that mean I can be Spectre Cat? No. Kevin is the central protagonist of our story, as he receives most of the focus, while Harvey Birdman is naturally the less important side character, who Kevin exchanges banter with. It is super weird how Gary Cole is an NPC, but most of the acting in this one is top-notch, and gets better the more the story moves on. Christopher definitely makes Kev feel human and down-to-earth, so you do feel for him. For now, the duo are making new holographic tech for Nintendo, before suddenly spotting a baby fetus growing in-game. What? How did that get there?
I didn't do it.
Fun piece of trivia, apparently Wes Craven experimented with early TV green screen and early prototype CGI for the very first time in this misadventure. This entire Twilight Zone episode was the first step for newfound effects, which revolutionized television. The VR projector is certainly a hokey effect by today, but since the tale addresses how these techies are attempting to work out holographic gizmos, it kind of complements the episode more than it takes away. It does never look like the holograms are really there, but they look off-putting enough to make it feel cool. Wes claimed that he had so much trouble shooting and reshooting scenes of the holograms and humans interacting, that he basically did put the real-world actors and the holograms in the same room, where he placed the effects over the footage when dialogue scenes were said and done. It was a difficult job, yet Craven wanted the emotions of the scene to be genuine. Even on a low-budget TV show, the master continues to pour his soul into his craft. The two assume it's a glitch in their system, so they reset. But we see that they can't abort this baby so easily. But never mind that boring schlock, cause we cut to Kevin having marital spats. He's a workaholic who barely ever sees his wife, causing a rift to form in between them.
I mean, there's still so much work to do at the lab.
Oh, to hell with the lab. You spend all your time there. I barely even see you anymore. And when I do, all you can talk about is your work.
It's 3 years of my life. You can't expect me to just throw that away, can you?
This basically grants us the most noteworthy element of Kevin's character. He's avoiding his own personal demons and starts drifting away from his supportive wife since he refuses to talk to her. Their relationship is kept fairly simple, but the idea of growing apart from your lover is a relatable enough issue to understand, since he barely shares any time with her, causing her to think that their spark is extinguished. A small problem that's going to really get thrown into the ringer once entering the Twilight Zone. The next day, Kevin finds the Hollow Baby has grown up into a delightful Hollow Lady, now portrayed by a terrible child actor.
He left me here all night and all alone.
And the Oscar goes to someone else. Kevin and Harvey Birdman befriend the ominous Hollow Girl, learning that she's a real sentient being named Nola. And no exaggeration, the entirety of this episode is all about Kevin bonding with her, raising her as if she were his own, and confiding in her about their life's misadventures. For you see, Nola is not a program. She's a real living soul who the doctors cherish as a real person. The hologram is alive. The hologram has a soul? A real soul? Yeah. You okay, buddy? Fine. I'm fine. Please, carry on. Okay. So, all throughout the episode, Kevin and Harvey Birdman basically bond with and take care of Nola, the living hologram. They learn more about her, make toys for her out of the VR tech, hang out, play games, and study her. They soon discover that Nola is still not quite normal like average human beings, though. She's aging up at an accelerated rate. She grows up by 10 years every passing day, where we see she swaps out actresses each time to show her evolving. It's a pretty cool concept since it establishes a deadline the heroes have to reach before the innocent Nola eventually phases out. The doctors seek to find out who Nola is and why she's here before it's too late, with Harvey Birdman looking into Nola's family history without Google, while Kevin plays with and interviews her. I do love how the actress changes with each passing age shift, and the show even alters her appearance to reflect that. That's very neat. Plus, the little girl Nola is seriously played by Miss Martian Danica McKellar. How cool is that?
I was out by the sprained lake, remembering the time Daddy took us out for a picnic. I walked into the water.
Miss Martian and the Spectre? What, is this a DC reunion? We better not see any more obscure DC icons in this story, or I'm out. Sorry, Robin.
Holy faster pussycat kill kill!
Won't lie, I think this episode does drag quite a lot in places, and some of this content is not nearly as deep as Wes Craven was probably hoping. I do think it's cute how the adult scientists befriend this lost hologram soul, like something on Star Trek, yet a lot of the bonding scenes could have been compressed into a montage. All these cutesy moments are wholesome, but they absorb tons of screen time, and made this short story feel even longer by padding things out. The surreal setting of a human and virtual being falling in love does have great potential and unique concepts. Yet the fact that it's treated like it's normal holds back the episode. I'm just saying, if you're not into the touchy-feely love story, then it just comes across as dull.
So when you think about these people, these places, these things, it's like you're almost there?
Yeah. But I like being here. You better.
Nola, do you remember when it was your daddy took you to the lake? What year?
I think it was 19 and 17. Maybe 16. Yeah, 19 and 16.
How much longer? It does get somewhat intriguing again, as more about Nola is revealed. The duo learn that Nola was in fact a real human person at one point, who died a long time ago. And this is her ghost in the machine. If only we had an alchemist on hand. Nola had a life back in the early turn of the century. She grew up in a troubled childhood, had a family, a career, etc. However, in spite of all the solid proof that Nola might be a ghost, Kevin somehow refuses to believe this.
Do you suppose that somehow, some way, that a human soul has reincarnated inside that computer?
Dan, I'm not sure I believe in the human soul, much less in reincarnation.
Why? Why is a soul less credible than any of a dozen hypothetical subatomic particles? We can't prove that they exist either.
Yeah, but that's different. We can posit their existence from the behavior of other observable phenomena.
Oh, zip it, egghead. You with your big words and your small, difficult words.
What? I don't get it. I know most scientists don't usually jump on board to spiritual beliefs for a strong hypothesis, but what the heck are you supposed to think when a literal ghost is haunting your machine? This was intended to highlight how fickle Kevin can be when facing something he does not understand, which will come up again later, but it's still rather poorly done, as the supernatural is clearly occurring right under his nose. Not to mention meaningless, as Kevin goes back to hanging out with the Hollow Girl, acting like she's real all the same, and forgetting that he doesn't believe in ghosts.
Well, that was pointless.
Kevin forms a strong kinship with the Hollow Lady, where Nola even learns more about him and his life. Wes Craven does a pretty decent job at normalizing this peculiar romance, since the two grow to see each other as total equals, capable of sharing deep secrets.
Now, I tried reading him the one that begins, I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made.
9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the
bee-loud glade.
Whoa, move over, Cortana-in-Chief. You've been outclassed. She tells him that he must be a wonderful person away from work, praising his love for his wife, before cutting to Kevin departing his wife so he can sleep at the lab.
Huh. Irony!
Unfortunately, the Nola experiment has caused Kevin to grow obsessed with his project, forming an even larger rift between him and his woman. His wife just wants him to be there for her so they can feel love again, but Kevin fears commitment. I like how they try to humanize the couple instead of making them over-the-top dysfunctional, but Kevin's still kind of a dick.
Are you leaving me, Kevin?
I don't know! I don't know anything anymore!
To be fair, he does apologize to her, but their love is teetering over the edge. Credit where credit's due, Wes Craven does make this romance contain tragic moments. Kevin is not shown in a bad light for growing closer to Nola, and Nola seems to maturely want Kevin to mend fences with his real living wife, as she knows they can never be. The couple split is treated as a sad reminder of how not all love turns irredeemably sour, as sometimes folks can just change over time, and lose that sweet connection they used to have because life is ever-changing. A deep idea which should gain some appreciation.
All I ever wanted to do was make a real, classic love story.
Meanwhile, Harvey Birdman does actual work exploring the secret origin of Nola, where a historian confirms that she was real and details how Nola had a falling out with her bigot father when she married a guy who Daddy didn't approve of. An aged-up Nola admits that this is true, telling Kevin about her long-lost lover, Robert. He was an ideal man she truly cherished, yet Daddy didn't like him 'cause he was a filthy Jew. Apparently, Nola's pa was Eric Cartman.
Father didn't approve of any of it, especially Robert.
Why, because the guy wasn't rich?
That too, but mainly because he was Jewish.
Oh, come on. You're kidding.
This shocks you? Earlier, Nola kind of inferred her elitist daddy was a bigot in her last interview.
It's not a girl's place, he'd say, to think about such things. And when I'd ask him questions about literature and politics, he'd just smile, a patronizing little smile, and tell me how beautiful I was.
Yet you're shocked that a guy who laughed at women learning stuff was an intolerant dick? Our master scientist, folks.
I don't know how to teach. I'm a professor.
And as you can guess, a romance blooms between the two once Nola reaches legal age. As much as Kevin worships his ghost gal, he does worry where this is going, acknowledging their star-crossed paths. Nola informs him that she once desired a child with Robert, but before going on, she keels over in agony. She confesses that she was reliving the pain. It was her greatest pain of all, since her child died. Then she vanishes.
I didn't know she could do that.
Neither did I.
We've only been studying her for days, yet somehow we didn't know that. Harvey Birdman chats with his boss, concerned for his health. Gary Cole does have experience working with way too many deranged bosses.
Where are you going to? Do you like the things that life is showing you?
He's still researching Nola's backstory, but warns Kev not to get too attached to his waifu simulator, since eventually she will die. Honestly, this is where Wes Craven's directing gets super soap opera heavy. I do love how there is a dark tension since his crush is dying, but the story just makes it real cheesy.
She's aging 10 years every day. At this rate, she'll be gone in 3 or 4 days. What do you do then?
Soccer bopper, soccer bopper. You can sock all day and bop all night. Soccer bopper, soccer bopper. More fun than a pillow fight. Blow 'em up, put your hand inside, get ready to have the time of your life. Soccer bopper.
Soccer boppers, more fun than the pillow fight by Big Time Toys.
Soccer bopper.
I concur with Kat. In spite of the show's valiant effort, the romance still feels overly dramatic, as Nola might as well just be an ill girl with an incurable disease, as the show neglects to take full advantage of the Twilight Zone's oddness. There's numerous possibilities to toy around with a dying hologram, but the show sticks with a prototype Benjamin Button syndrome that's not nearly as memorable as the trippy effects in use are. I dare say this just feels like a cliché romance set in the Twilight Zone, and not a Twilight Zone love story with an out-of-this-world flair setting it apart from the others. Not to mention, the show outright states that she and Kevin fell in love within a few days.
3 days!
I'm not trying to discourage fans of this episode, but the soap opera vibes behind this arc might come off as schmaltzy to some, especially since Craven really wanted the love to be center stage rather than his crazy setting.
All I ever wanted to do was make a real, classic love story.
It does get better near the ending, but we're not there yet. So naturally, once remembering that his Sims girlfriend will die soon, he spends even more time with her during her final days. The two are clearly more than just friends by this point, but Hollow Girl realizes that they shouldn't continue this, as she knows she's dying, and she wants Kevin to rejoin his wife. It's legit one of the nicer scenes of the arc, as Nola outgrew him, matured into a wiser woman while regaining her lost memories, and went from his student to his teacher. Her soul's come a long way.
All I know is the moment in this life that you start to feel happiness, that's the moment the rug's pulled out from under you, that you lose everything.
And if you never have happiness, you don't know what it's like to lose it. Do you?
I realize I'm looking at this a little foolishly. Checkmate.
Very good. You're learning. You're learning.
We then cut to Harvey Birdman talking to this really bizarre old guy about Nola, since he's the last living friend of her and Robert. He knew them on a deep level, admiring their life's work.
They were lovely people. Robert with his passion for social justice, Nola with her love of poetry.
Oh, gross. SJWs. The Twilight Zone was being ruined by them even back then. Gary Cole asks if Nola had any unfinished business before their untimely passing, where Old Man reveals that Nola died at a young age, which left Robert depressed forever. Robert buried himself in his work to avoid angsting, but he was never the same. Nola was his universe, but she left this world before him.
How did she die?
I thought you knew. She died in childbirth.
Oh Oh my gosh, you know what this means? No. What does it mean? It means, I don't know. She died in childbirth, yet we see her hologram ghost is clearly living out a full life to make up for that. That's it? So what?
I guess we'll never know.
Or will we?
Nope.
We then cut back to Nintendo Lab, where Nola somehow uses her Cortana hacking skills to control the computer tech, so she can call Kevin's wife and get them to hook up again. How did she get those powers despite being a ghost of a woman who died in a past before computers existed?
The world may never know.
She wakes up Kev, telling him it's over. She must go now, as her time here is complete. Where we get to our twist ending. Alright, so this is where things really start to get insane. They weren't insane before? Okay, this is where we inject more insanity into the insanity. It turns out that Nola haunted this lab because, you ready? Kevin is the reincarnation of her dead lover, Robert. She came here to help coax Kevin out of his angst and depression from his past life of her ex-husband. Since when Robert died alone and broken, he reincarnated with all his past pain into Kevin, who is also suffering from relationship issues reflecting his past lives.
You carried the grief with you all your life and into the next. But I don't remember any of it. You remembered enough to be afraid. Afraid of love.
Nola was spending her new life cycle with him so he could live out the life with her that he never had in their tragic past to help him gain hope again. And Nola knew this and led him on all along because...
Women.
So remember, ladies, when your man has commitment issues, it's not because of a flaw in your relationship. It's because their past self passed along their old pain onto them, causing them to have fear of giving love a chance.
Of course! Don't you know anything about science?
All I ever wanted to do was make a real, classic love story.
So, reincarnation is real? Kevin was Nola's dead ex Robert reborn, while Nola was brought back as a holographic ghost who had to teach him to move on. Boy, it sure was noble of Vishnu to make all this possible.
No, it wasn't. It was God.
So, yes, this was what the romance was building up to. Nola and Kevin were a couple in a past life, and they reunited so Nola could teach him to let go and live again. Kevin had to overcome his fears of commitment, i.e. Robert's old angst, so he could move on with his new woman now, and have fun like he used to. Not to bury himself in his work like Robert did, but utilize the time he still has to appreciate love. I would call this twist beautiful, but if he had fears of love the whole time, then how the heck did he even gain a wife to begin with?
The world may never know.
The twist is interesting, but the weirdness doesn't quite leave an impact on it. Maybe if we actually saw Robert in the episode, then it could have been stronger if we got to know Nola's true love more before hitting that great twist over how the man we've been following was her true companion all along. And I'm just gonna say it. You could take out this reincarnation twist completely, and it would not change a frickin' thing. The episode's moral is basically about how love is worth fighting for. You shouldn't be afraid trying to put yourself out there, own up to your flaws, and mend a relationship. That is nice, but honestly, if Kevin and Nola had zero background prior to her teaching him to cherish his life, it would still feel the exact same as it does with this twist. because she was already dying and he was learning to get back out there thanks to her kind words anyway. I do admire the life lesson, but it just feels like...
Yeah, alright, weird for the sake of weird.
Oh! I suppose Craven just wanted the story to have a sense of magic. Not a horrible idea, and at least the music is heartwarming. However, the explosion feels simply okay, instead of powerful. It's meh. So Kevin cries, but thanks her for all she's done, before reading her Robert's favorite poem as a final farewell. How does he know their favorite poem despite only now realizing he's a reincarnation?
The world may never know.
And that's it. The couple finishes a last goodbye, and our hollow gal ascends to a higher plane of existence.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Dr. Drayton, this is security. We have a woman here. She says she's your wife. Shall we let her through?
Yes. Yeah, let her through.
Yes, sir.
Oh crap, it's a terrorist! Run! Run! No, of course Kevin reunites with his wife. They get back together with a passionate kiss. And they get a special parting gift from Nola, the ball Kevin designed, proving that the best way to a woman's heart is with big balls.
And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur, a little sadly, how love fled, and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid her face amid a crowd of stars. A variation on William Butler Yeats, to all those who have loved and lost, and loved again, on Earth or in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And that was the fan-favorite 80s experiment, Her Pilgrim Soul. And it's the superior version of Sensuous Cindy. I mean it. It feels like this episode is a vastly upgraded take on that garbage 2000s tale. G2 Twilight Zone gives us a more wholesome tale about a man falling in love with a virtual girl, only to learn a valuable lesson on cherishing the real world he has, since his life is worth living, and his love for his wife was stronger than he assumed. I'd hardly call it the greatest tale ever written, as there is much to be desired from this love fest. Yet it does have its touching moments, unique visuals, and true heart behind it. Wes Craven's want of a supernatural star-crossed lovers drama is captured well enough through this story, as Nola is an endearing character, and Kevin does feel like your average guy who wants love, but has to work for it. I'm regretful to say that romance arcs and horror anthologies still have a huge mountain to climb, but this attempt does make it farther than most, since Craven's passion to obtain it blatantly shows on screen. Overall, Her Pilgrim Soul is a decent episode. It's likely not going to shatter records, but it's just a more wholesome, lighthearted tale on how you shouldn't give up on finding your happy ending, even after suffering from some harsh setbacks and issues which most people go through. Kevin is a fairly simple guy who most people are meant to picture themselves as, since he faces regular human problems, such as a snag in his love life, bottling up his emotions, and an inability to let go and move on. Nola was a likable character with a cool gimmick, so there was heart between her and Kevin, especially since she wanted him to experience new love all along. The duo got to live a short but happy life before evolving into better people, making new precious memories before gaining the will to explore what lies ahead. A rather sweet moment brought to us by the Great Vishnu.
Jesus is a fairy tale. There's only Vishnu.
No, it wasn't. It was God.
So, despite our criticisms, I can still reward this tale A gold skull. Sadly, not a perfect score on account of the rather dull moments slowing the adventure down way too frequently, and very little Twilight Zone-ish moments in this Twilight Zone tale. But I can see inspiring results from this field test. This is a rare good supernatural romance story in a horror show, since there's genuine heart, good performances, unique visuals, and a mature lesson to encourage a broken heart to get fixed. I agree. Her Pilgrim soul, while still on beta mode, is a touching emotional narrative showing us a holographic image that's more than a mere illusion. That's really deep, Boss Cat. Thanks for joining me on this one. It made me appreciate this story a whole lot more. No problem, old chap. I guess this gave me some inspiration as well. Wait, with Twilight Zone month over, that means I gotta get to my final surprises before year's end. Thanks again. See you later, Wolfpack. Oh dear.